This is Science Friday. I'm Ira Flato. A bit later in the hour, we'll get an indigenous perspective on conservation and environmental restoration, plus our annual Ig Nobel Awards coverage. But first, with the holidays around the corner, that means it's gift giving season. And if you have a young person in your life who loves science, you might be thinking about what to get them for Christmas or Hanukkah. Why not kick it old school, right? Yeah, get them a book. A whole bunch of science books for kids and young adults came out this year. And joining me are two people who are going to tell us about their favorites. Melissa Stewart, science book author based in Boston. Christina Holzweiss, ed tech librarian based in Syosset, New York. That's on Long Island. Welcome, both of you, to Science Friday.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Nice to have you. A quick note, this conversation was recorded in front of a live Zoom audience. And for more information about how you can join a future live stream, head over to sciencefriday.com/live stream. All right, let's get right to our questions. Melissa, you write science books for kids, so I know you're very involved with this world. Can you give me your top 3 recommendations of science books for kids that came out this year?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'd be happy to share. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is one of the most highly anticipated science books of the year. And I have it here. I'm showing it just on a piece of paper because it actually hasn't been published yet. It's coming out next week. It's called The Universe in You, A Microscopic Journey. And it is written by Jason Chin, who has won the Caldecott Medal and the Seibert Honor Medal in the past. And it's actually a follow-up to a very popular book from a couple years ago called Your Place in the Universe. And so Your Place in the Universe sort of started with a person and then went out into the planets and the galaxy and the universe. This new book goes in. It starts with a person and it looks at the insides of our bodies, cells and then molecules and atoms, and then all the way down to quarks and gluons. So Jason Chin is really well known for his beautiful lifelike illustrations. And so this is a book that I think kids will really love. And the second book I wanted to share is called Footprints Across the Planet. This is by Jennifer Swanson. And this is a really great book. It's beautifully illustrated. The photos in this book are top notch. And it ranges all the way from footprints of some of our favorite animals, from elephants to birds, all the way down to tiny little flies. It also looks at footprints from fossilized dinosaurs and everything from footprints that have been left permanently by people on the moon to digital footprints and carbon footprints. And it
People
brings
love
all of
footprints,
those.
don't they?
Pardon?
Yeah, people love footprints. They love
Yeah,
to walk in
really
them, see them.
beautiful photos.
Yeah, beautiful book.
And then the third book that I wanted to talk about, I just have a paper version of this too. This is called Yoshi and the Ocean. And the subtitle of this book is A Sea Turtle's Incredible Journey Home. It's written by Lindsay Moore, and it tells the remarkable story of an injured loggerhead sea turtle that was rescued by some Japanese fishermen and then rehabilitated for a period of 20 years, and then eventually released with a radio tag, and scientists were able to watch it swimming a total of 25,000 miles all the way back to his home in Australia.
Wow.
So it's a really
Wow.
beautiful art and really well written.
That's something really cool and some great books. Thank you, Melissa. Christina, you're up. You were named the 2015 Scholastic School Librarian of the Year. So I imagine you're clued into what kids actually like and they seek out. And I know you're also heavily involved with the makerspace world, which I think is terrific. So give me, please, your top 3 recommendations.
Well, thank you, Ira. Well, I'm going to give you some recommendations that I love. They could be appropriate for, I would say, maybe intermediate, elementary school, middle school is where I spent 23 years of my career. I'm now in the high school, but I love photos in any books, and I think any kids would love this. This one is called Copycat, and I love connecting nature with technology. And I love doing that in my makerspace, very low tech and high tech. And this book is nature inspired designs. So basically, it has photos of nature and how we have adapted those items in our design. So here we have an image of a snail and its home, and then a home that looks like that in the desert. And so on the left side, we have the nature, which is we have here a hummingbird. On the right side, we have these wind turbines. So I really love that connection of showing children and even adults how we are influenced by nature and how we've used some of those great ideas in nature for our technology. So that's called Copycat: Nature Inspired Design Around the World. My second book is called Octopuses Have Zero Bones. Now, it is a counting book, but it is not a typical counting book. I would not use this for little kids to learn how to count from 1 to 10, because as you find out when you go through the book, it doesn't just talk about numbers 1 through 10, but it talks about bigger numbers. So for example, we have our 0, but we also have our 1, and then the 1 turns into a 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, all the way up. So basically, the author takes zeros and puts it at the end of numbers to really scale up the counting. So there is only one heart in your body, but then we talk about if we place a 0 behind the 1, we have a 10. So it's not a traditional typical counting book. The pictures might be a little more juvenile because they are hand drawn, but I would think the content is really for, again, upper elementary, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And just the idea of it, maybe even like lower middle school, maybe even 6th grade. That's, I would say that's a sweet spot.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
isn't that a cool book?
Yeah.
And also we think of STEM books as traditionally nonfiction. Well, I love fiction books as well. And I love the intersection between fiction and nonfiction with science. I'm not I was never a strong science student, but I love the humanity of science. I love learning about how science affects our world. So this is called The First Rule of Climate Club. And the author is Carrie Firestone, who wrote the book Dress Code, and that was a middle school book. And this book talks about a group of students, and they are activists, and they're talking about climate change. But it's not just about activism. The main character, Mary Kate, has a friend, Lucy, who has a mysterious illness, and then they have another student from another area of the neighborhood. His name is Sean Hill, and they learn that not only is it about science and climate, but how relationships build. So I love learning about the global goals by the United Nations. There are global goals that students around the world are talking about, like climate change and equity in education. And there's and zero poverty. This one is all about climate change. So it's really good to inspire our young youth activists.
That's great. Those are some great book choices. Thank you. We have some questions already coming in on Zoom. And our first question is from Suhail from Pakistan. I'm going to direct this to Melissa. Suhail asks, how do you decide to use the vocabulary and language according to the kid's age and understanding? Melissa,
It's really important to be able to keep that in mind. And so I think writers are very in tune to what kind of vocabulary is being used at what level. There are actually dictionaries that can help you to determine that as well, but it's something to keep in mind. For picture books, sometimes, because those are meant to be read to children rather than read by the children themselves necessarily. So sometimes the vocabulary in those books could be a little bit higher.
And I have another question from sort of similar. Raki asks this: could you please give ages for children not in the U.S. schooling system? Intermediate means what age? For example, Christina, do you have an answer for
Intermediate,
that? Yeah.
yes, intermediate elementary would be about 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade. So those would be ages 8, 9, and 10. And our middle schools, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which are your 11, 12, and 13-year-olds.
That's great. And what kinds of science books do you find kids at your school gravitating to? Does that change based on grade level, Christina?
Well, I work in a high school now, so a lot of the science books that our students are reading are really driven by the curriculum. But I find that students of all ages love books that have to do with pop culture. So books that have to do like the science behind toys or the science behind their favorite brands, the science behind everyday technology that they use. So their connection with the science and their passions,
Right.
that's what I'm finding. It's more what they gravitate to.
I love those kinds of books. That's why I read kids' books because there's so much good stuff, right? They don't take that you know anything for granted. And I like that. Yeah. Melissa, you just got off a book tour for your own book. Can you tell us about that book?
I did. I actually had two books that came out within the last month or so. So the first one is called Tree Hole Homes, and it's about creatures that live in trees. It includes the usual suspects like birds and squirrels, but also some amazing animals from all over the world, like iguanas and crabs. And my favorite thing about the art in this book is that it actually was painted on real pieces of wood. So when you look at the trees, what you're seeing is the grain of the actual wood pieces that the illustrator Amy Hevron used.
Beautiful stuff. Just
Yeah,
gorgeous. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful art. And then the other, which is totally different, is called Mega Predators of the Past. And this book is not about dinosaurs, it's about the other mega predators of the ancient world. So it includes everything from giant ripper lizards, which are on the cover here,
Ripple
to,
lizards. Don't think we ever
yeah,
heard of that.
they're, you wouldn't want to run into one in a cave, that's for sure. And one of my favorites is these giant terror birds, which are as tall as giraffes. And so this book really takes a fun look at some of these amazing creatures. It includes little comparison illustrations that show you the size compared to humans and also some other more common animals that are alive today.
That shows you how dinosaurs and birds are so connected in that illustration. What a gorgeous illustration that was. Cayenne has a question about books for aspiring astrophysicists. Go ahead, Cayenne.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Ira. So I have a 9-year-old grandson, and he is an aspiring astrophysicist. He loves everything about space. So I'm looking for books that you could recommend on space, planets, nebula. He really loves nebula, stars, and he's so into the James Webb Space Telescope. But I need something that's at his grade level, or, he could probably read about like 5th, 6th grade level. And of course, pictures are always good. So any recommendations you have?
I think a really great place for him to start would be the book that I was mentioning a little bit earlier, Jason Chin's book that came out in 2020. It's called Your Place in the Universe. I think he would really enjoy that book.
Okay, Melissa, you're a firm believer in nonfiction books for kids. So why do you think this myth persists that kids only like fiction? I was not one of those kids who only.
Yeah, I
like
think that's a
fiction.
really good question. I think that there's research actually being done on this question right now, and I'm looking forward to that. I think it may be that a lot of people who are in education may be natural fiction lovers themselves, and they don't necessarily think about nonfiction. I think it's also that a lot of adults remember the nonfiction books of the past, which maybe weren't as engaging as what we now have today. Nonfiction for children has never been more vibrant and vital than it is right now. And I hope that this holiday season or anytime, parents will go into bookstores and see all the amazing nonfiction books that are out there today.
Yeah, this is a great time to do that because you can pick out books you think that are really good or listen to what we're talking about and give them as gifts. Good idea. Christina, do you have tips for introducing kids to nonfiction books? You must see this all the time in the library, right?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. In my library, I actually had a makerspace, and I had the makerspace in my nonfiction section, and I surrounded that makerspace full of books. So it was an integral part. It was not a separate part of the library. So I found that a lot of kids who came in who like to read I would engage them into creating something. They would never knew that then when they walked in, they'd be able to see robots and coding and do arts and crafts. And the kids who wanted to come in, excuse me, and the kids who wanted to come in to play and to use the green screen and make movies, I was hoping to hook them with a book. I also created mobile makerspace kits. So I would actually find books in my collection that paired with different maker activities like Kiva planks or Legos. And I would create kits, and then the teachers can borrow them for their classroom when the students had some downtime. So I really believe in making and literacy really being connected.
Well, it's good that you bring that up because we have an anonymous person on Zoom who wants to know what would be some good books in makerspace to inspire kids to be makers. I
Oh,
mean,
I would definitely,
we only have a few minutes.
there's a book, there's a collection of books. They're called STEAM Tales, and they connect books like Alice in Wonderland, The Secret Garden to STEAM activities. So I highly recommend that one.
That's great. And Melissa, what trends are you seeing in topics kids are interested in? Do they have trends?
I think they do to a certain extent. Christina actually already talked about a few trends. I think there are some evergreen topics, things like dinosaurs and animals that kids are perennially interested in. But I think now kids are also really interested in books about climate change, about extreme weather events like hurricanes and droughts, things that they see happening around them all the time. I think they just want to know more about the world and how it works and their place in it.
Yeah, I think they always do. The kids are natural experimenters. You know, they're really natural scientists. They want to experiment and they really want to know how the world works. Nicolette has a question about building their libraries for the classroom. Go ahead, Nicolette.
Hi, thanks for having me on. So I'm in teacher education, and I'm just curious if y'all have any suggestions, recommendations that I can pass on to new teachers, particularly in elementary and middle grades, who are building their classroom libraries.
Christina, you were shaking your head there, like you were
Yeah.
nodding, not saying no.
There definitely needs to be a balance. There has to be a balance between, I believe, nonfiction, fiction, and different reading levels in the classroom library. You have kids with all different abilities and all sorts of interests. The more you can give them that they can see themselves in, and also diverse characters. If you can find books with diverse characters and people in our world who have done great things from different backgrounds, I think that's the way to go.
I
Is that
would add to that, I think that it's great to have a variety of different kinds of nonfiction. I think that we naturally tend to think about different categories of fiction, mysteries versus science fiction versus realistic fiction, but you can divide fiction, nonfiction into categories too. So there are browsable books that kids can read and enjoy in groups and kind of pick out the fun facts. And then there's also expository literature, which can look in a very detailed, up close way at a concept. There's traditional nonfiction, books that are more all about books that look at a broader topic. And then there's active nonfiction, which are the kind of books Christina was talking about before that are perfect for a makerspace or for learning how to cook things or do origami or crafts. So there's many different kinds of nonfiction, and there are kids that love it all.
one of the nonfictions categories that I loved as a kid was biography. I remember reading books about Einstein or books of Louis Pasteur, all kinds of folks. Even Anthony Fauci has a book about him out this year. And that's what one of our listeners wants to know. What new science biographies should we be watching for? Any suggestions?
One of my favorite from the year is called Blips on the Screen. It's by Kate Hannigan, and the subtitle is How Ralph Baer Invented TV Video Games and Launched a Worldwide Obsession. So this is a book about a Jewish refugee who really was so incredibly persistent. When TV was first invented, he wanted it to be more interactive, and he had the skills and the expertise to figure out how to create those very first video games that have developed into one of the pastimes that kids love more than anything today.
Good idea. Melissa and Christina, I have one last question for you. We're running out of time. I'm wondering if there are topics that you find are connected. And by that, I mean, you could help parents. By that, I mean, you could help the parents or gift givers out there. Like if your kid likes topic X, they may like topic Y. Some sort of connection there. What do you think, Christina?
Well, video games is definitely a hook. And like you said, Melissa, video games. There's a book called Gamer Girls that talks about women in the video game industry. So any way you can give, like I said, connect something like an actual toy or a game with a book, I think that's a really great idea. Robots, artificial intelligence, cell phones, learning about social media and how to be safe on social media. All those things can really help our students and our children.
Some great book suggestions. I want to thank both of you for taking time to be with us today. Melissa Stewart, science book author based in Boston. Christina Howise, X-Tech. Christina Howise, EdTech librarian based in Syosset, New York. Thank you for taking time to be with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.